let's go to the last part, which is actually analyzing the data. So far, what we did so far is, okay, we learned how to encode your data as a network, or we learned how the network data look like what should it look like to be processable by network analysis tools, let's say. But how do we analyze it? How do we measure those centralities, which I was speaking about in the first part? How do we measure those densities? How do we measure those things? And for this, we have quite a range of tools, actually. And I have experience with more than one. So it's not that there is just one tool. There is no one tool to rule them all. So Gephi is very, very common in digital humanities specifically for some reason. And I have most experience in Gephi, so I will show Gephi. There is also Cytoscape, which is, I think, functionally pretty much the same, but a bit, like most people think it's a bit less beautiful in terms of visualization, but you feel free to use it. There's also this tool which I got introduced to only this year, which is called Visone. It's really a small team effort, but surprisingly good. So Visone, I think it was made by a German team, and it's a Java kind of executable file. So you don't even have to install it. You just download this kind of jar file and then it runs. And it does almost all the things that Gephi does, and also some more, which are not in the functionality of Gephi, for instance. So I was surprised to learn how functional and quick it is. So maybe some of you might be interested in trying out Visone. And so all these three tools on the top, they are desktop applications, basically. It's something that you can use without any line of coding. So that's something for people who just want to install a desktop app and then use it, clicking the buttons basically. There are also, of course, programming libraries, and the two which are particularly popular in our domain, I would say, are NetworkX, which is a standard network analysis library for Python. So you just do import that NetworkX, and then you can also read into your network. You can read into your network the GXF file or CSV file or any other file and analyze it and even visualize it in a Python notebook, basically. And for R, there is this iGraph library. I think there was also a version of iGraph library for Python, but I don't think anybody uses it since the advent of NetworkX. So the bottom ones are basically for those who code and who want to embed network analysis in their coding practices, basically, and to do the whole network analysis within a coding environment, within a development system. Yeah. So Gephi is normally, called a Photoshop for graph data. At least that's how they self-identify, because it does produce beautiful visualizations. So this is one thing you can do with Gephi, in 5 steps, starting with the CSV, basically. With the CSV, which just records the, contacts, or like in this case, actually co-appearance of characters in a certain book. And then in 5 steps, you can reach from that very simple Notepad file to this. And if you want to have like full experience with Gephi, I would suggest you install it. So you could install it from the official website, which is gephi.org. So Gephi is free, open source, and so on. So it's not a commercial tool. It's developed by this team, which is mostly based in France. I met some of them at certain DH conferences. They're quite nice people, supporting all this. Not really making any profit on this. Yeah. So, and once you install it, so please try to install it. I know it's a bit late, but please try to install it at least. And maybe we could troubleshoot some installation errors. But later versions of Gephi, like the ones they publish now, are normally much easier to install. You just click next and then it's installed, or you just drag it to your applications folder on the Mac and it's installed and it runs without any trouble. They used to be, like in the older days, there used to be a lot of trouble with this Java versions and stuff, but hopefully, or not hopefully, but luckily they fixed most of it, and like lately I had so much less trouble with that. And once you've done it, I would suggest you just start trying to do things which are in this manual which you have here. Some of the screenshots will probably be still in Russian. Apologies for that, but I think the the general procedure should be pretty clear. It's actually like this instruction basically tells you how to go from a CSV, which you already have from Islinovis or from other source, from a CSV to a visualization, which is something like what I showed on the previous slide, something like this. So basically, before I let you do the practical, before I let you at least start the practical part, I will show you how to do this in Gephi, basically. So let me close my Gephi instance and then open it one more time. So that you just see what should normally happen when you just start network analysis. So where's my Gephi? Gephi. Yeah, so when you start it, what normally happens is you see this loading window. It tells you which version of Gephi it is, and then you see this window which says welcome to Gephi, and it says new project, and you can basically click new project. That's the way which works most of the time. And then what you do is you go to file, and then you click open, and then you basically choose your your CSV file with your network. And let me maybe look for so okay, I will take this this really stupid network, and now it's uploaded already, and now I can already see it. Almost. It says initializing. So now I can already see, here's my network of just 3 people, which I encoded with Islinovis. It's pretty stupid. And one thing I can do is I could immediately add labels to this thing. It's something you don't have to remember, because I'm basically doing things which are written in the manual. So I'm adding labels so that they were all and I'm turning on labels so that they were all signed. And already in the preview, I can see my network. And if I, for instance, choose like a default layout, for instance, default straight or text outline, so I already have some pretty decent visualization of that network, right? That's something that I can already export as PNG or SVG or just screenshot. That's also easy, to be honest. And yeah, and so that's basically already I did some visualization. So let me redo that once more on a more complex file, namely the Storm of Swords CSV, which I will quickly move to the folder. So this is now I will open the CSV which you also have in your instruction. So this is the sample which you could use if you don't want to use your own encoded Islinovis file. And this is basically a network which was automatically created from one of the books by George Martin in the Song of Ice and Fire series, which encodes basically co-appearance of characters in, I think, 1 paragraph. So it's really a dumb network which was done completely automatically. But it's actually quite nice, and if you read the book, it will even look meaningful to you, to be honest. So if you try to open this CSV, you will get something more messy, and that's normal. So this site, which you see if you're still looking at my screen, this site will actually could look scary at starters, but it's actually okay. This is actually okay. So this is just like the result of the fact that by default Gephi outputs your network at random. So it just uses random layout. So it puts nodes randomly, and it doesn't look into like who's connected to whom when it just puts them, and then it throws all the connections, and of course you get this messy network. But there are lots of layouts which are much more meaningful. Layouts which actually highlight the structure of the network. And one of the most popular, I would say, is this Force Atlas 2, which is an algorithm built by the creators of Gephi themselves. And if you run it, you will see this blob, because it's running a bit strongly, but you can always make the scaling a bit bigger, or you can always just run expansion here later, and it's all again it's expressed in the manual, so you don't have to remember when I'm showing it. You don't have to remember. I'm just showing what's possible. So if you run it with a bigger scaling, you already will get a network which is much, much more interesting and meaningful because you already see some structure. You see here is a group of characters which is kind of separate. Here is a group of characters which is kind of separate. And here is the main kind of blob of characters. And here's a node which is more central than this node, for instance. So this is something you already see. And so what do we want to do next is first to see who is who. And for this, again, you need to copy, at least that's the preferred way, that's the way I like. There are alternative ways, but you need to copy the ID of the characters to the label column in this data laboratory, which contains all the nodes. And then if you go back to overview and you click on this T button, then you will immediately see the character names. And again, if it gets too messy, you can just increase the scaling and rerun the algorithm, or you can just run a bit of this expansion thingy here, which just expands your network. Additional help will be this label adjust layout, which can be applied on top of this layout. And if you run it, you will see that for instance, here you see that the names are flowing on top of each other, and if you run it, they will automatically be moved away from each other so that every label is seen on your network. So you can already see some more meaningful network, and it takes a bit of practice to to learn how to manipulate the network in Gephi. It will be lost all the time. It's not really very friendly for the mouse or touchpad. So if you lost your network, you can always click here to center on it, and you can already see there is some structure of characters, right? And for those of you who are familiar with the realm of Game of Thrones, you can immediately see that this is something that's happening around Daenerys Targaryen when she's abroad, basically overseas, and these are all the characters which are with her in her exile. And this is the characters which are centered around Jon Snow beyond the wall. So we see that the networks in this case kind of reflects the geographical dimensions of the universe of George Martin. So you can see some kind of different toposes of the book reflected in the network. And what we could also do is we could, for instance, run this modularity clustering, which I really like, and see what kind of communities we get here. And it will automatically try to cluster the same way the Karate Club was clustered. It will automatically try to cluster the network into certain sub-communities according to who co-appears with whom and how often. And then you can color your network accordingly, and you see it kind of does the job. So it kind of gives you this seven clusters, and you see this Jon Snow cluster, and there's this kind of Stark cluster, and there's this kind of cluster around Arya Stark, and then there's this kind of obvious Daenerys cluster. And again, apologies for those who are not familiar with the whole saga, but I just like this example, and you could use your own example and see if you get any clustering, I don't know, from the communication that you recorded with your friends. And so this is basically how you do it. And then you can go to preview and use one of these layouts. And basically, this is where you already get network, which is already kind of quite pretty, and you can play around with the settings, and then export it in the form of PNG, SVG, or PDF. And now I will extract it to the folder. And that's basically it. So now I have a PNG somewhere in this folder. Yeah, here it is. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics of network analysis with Gephi. And what I encourage you to do is, of course, we didn't have enough time to actually like practice with Gephi, but I think that's okay because the most important thing for me was to give you the impression of like what the network should look like. Like first of all, why is it meaningful? And the second is like what the network should look like and how do I produce this kind of data that is analyzable afterwards. And then you can use Gephi, you could use other tools, you could use NetworkX if you're a coder, you could use iGraph if you're R coder, let's say. So the most important part for me in this workshop was to actually introduce this kind of the formalities, the formalization of things. And then you can just follow the tutorial or find some other tutorials. Actually, Gephi has great tutorials on its own website. And just basically run the whole thing on the sample network which I suggest, or on your own network which you create with EasyLinivis. And again, as I showed you already, the output of EasyLinivis is just inputable to Gephi from the start, and then you can go on working with Gephi with your network of EasyLinivis. Don't forget to save the results all the time, because if with EasyLinivis it's easy to lose your data, because if you just refresh the page, you might lose the whole encoding. So maybe do it in a separate notepad. And in Gephi you can save the whole project, and that's better to save it because Gephi has a nasty tendency to crash sometimes, losing all your work. So that's it for the workshop. I mean, we're technically at the end, but I'm prepared to answer the additional questions of those of you who still have questions and who still have the will to ask them. So please, if you have any remaining questions, I'm happy to respond. Could you repeat the data laboratory step? Okay, so the data laboratory is there by default. So am I sharing? Let me share. Sorry, I will now click share again. So the data laboratory is there by default. So if you have Gephi open, you have this overview window, which is where you analyze your network. Basically, you have this network preview window where you basically plot beautiful pictures. And you have this data laboratory, and it's basically an Excel. It's an Excel sheet with two tabs, and one tab is edges. This is something you important basically. You import it with the CSV table, and this is the nodes. This is something that Gephi created automatically from the edges basically already. And so like there is nothing to be done here per se, except for like at the very beginning when I import data from CSV specifically, what I like to do is copy data from ID to label, and now it will not do anything because I already copied it. So that's the only thing that I do. So copy data to another column, ID, label. So source ID, target label. And this is just an easy way to get those labels here, to get those things here, because otherwise, like this is the button, this is the T button, which turns on labels. But the T button only works if you either have labels or if you go into this tiny settings thingy and specify ID as label. So there are alternative ways, but I didn't want to introduce them because like it's more complicated. So it's much easier to just stick to label, and then in preview you will automatically have your labels visualized. So yeah, play around with if you're interested with this with the Gephi, just play around with my instruction, and then maybe go to Gephi website, and they have 3 tutorials there actually, like on Gephi.org in this learning, I think it's called Learn, yes. So they have this quick start guide, tutorial visualization, and tutorial layout. So I really recommend these 3 tutorials. They're very graphic. They're very kind of little text, a lot of showing. I mean, little telling, much showing, just as it should be. So I recommend just going through this stuff. And again, if you're concerned that Gephi doesn't have a bright future, I don't know. I mean, it's a very popular tool, so I would imagine it will be somehow salvaged by the DH community. But if not, then consider alternatives like Cytoscape, like Visone, or like NetworkX and iGraph. How do we add, for example, gender? So to add gender, what you would need is basically you will need a table of your nodes, and actually we can extract it from Gephi. So now that we have nodes, we can actually export table. So suppose I want to encode gender. I mean, I could do it right here actually. Since I said this is already kind of like Excel. So what you could do is add column, call it gender. Let it be string so that we just write M and F. And let's just assign gender. Like I will just, keep it to binary for now. And let's say that Amen is male and this guy is male and this guy is male and so on. And then we hopefully find some females. I hope, although we could argue that this is a pretty misogynistic book, so maybe not. But in the end, what you need is like, I think we could also kind of mass fill it somehow. Or actually, let's maybe sort them by some centrality so that we at least we cover we cover the we cover the most central ones by gender. So Sansa is a female, Rob is a male. So that's something you can import, of course, as well. But I'm doing it right here to show that it's also doable right here. And so, okay, let's suppose we covered all the central characters with gender markers. Um, uh, and now what we can do is, now that we have this parameter, we can just go to overview and basically go to this appearance part where we can color characters. And now they are colored according to this automatic modularity clustering, which I did earlier. What we could also do is we could now select this gender, and you can see it's just two colors. And so what we will get, uh, and yeah, let me first set everybody to unique, and then what we'll get is those who have gender marked, they will have colors. Alternatively, you could just import this, basically import the same table as you're looking at now, import it here. So I see Johan is raising a hand, probably to tell me to shut up and that we are running out
No,
of time.
no, it's perfect.
No?
I just wanted to add something from personal experience, if I may. Because I've also been using networks a lot for analysis of metadata. And one feature that I don't think you've mentioned so far is that you can also import spreadsheet on top of another spreadsheet. So you can actually import a spreadsheet with metadata here. So for example, when we were working with LTEC data in some stylometry sessions, what I would ask my students to do would be to first import the stylometric network, but then import the LTEC metadata network on top of it. And the important thing is that there needs to be, the spreadsheets need to agree on the ID parameter. So as long as the ID parameter is the same, they will match, and just if you append to the existing workspace, it will just add exactly all of the metadata. So yeah, sorry if you were going to mention this, but I found it very...
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was trying to kind of hint at that, but I failed to like explain it properly. So yes, I mean, of course, that's what we talked about. We said we mentioned it in passing when we said that it's possible to import no network of spreadsheet with nodes basically on top of spreadsheet of or in the same workspace as a network of edges. So if I open this, for instance, in a table editor and set all the genders there, so for instance, here we have our nodes, our nodes table, and here we have some genders. And suppose we just suppose it was easier for us to somehow do it here. I will just randomly do it now so that we just have everybody and yeah, and then I will just insert some random genders, but assume I did it consciously. And then that's just, I don't know, can we just do it like this? I hope. Yes. And so this is basically this new table which we can upload to Gephi on top of the metadata, the table with metadata on character gender, which we could upload in the same existing workspace. Somewhere here, right? What was it called again? not stable CSV. So we need not stable CSV to find it. Yeah, here it is. So, and these IDs, yes, they should match to the ones which are already in our networks. And then if we click next, we have to be careful because now we have to specify that we are appending to existing workspace, not adding new one, which will be the default. And that's the number of nodes. Yes, that's correct. And then if we do that, then yeah, now you see. Now we see that the gender information got imported to that network from the gender information which we basically filled in LibreOffice, but you could do it with Excel as well. And now we can rerun this visualization, and you can see that all our characters are now gender marked. So you could do that. You could even make gender in the title. If you just click it here, you will see gender as part of each character's title. So that's something we can do. Yeah, so I think that's like the basics of Gephi, and again, feel free to explore on your own.